Hey guys and girls, it's FoxGreen back here again today, and we'll be looking at SSP2 versus SSP5 to see what the real differences are between these guns and which one gives you more bang for your buck. We'll also be looking at the main differences of both these guns, because I know a lot of people are curious of why the SSP5 is so much more expensive than the SSP2 when a lot of the features seem the same, but the truth is there's actually quite a lot different, especially under the hood. So we're going to go through some of those differences so you guys know which is the best one to buy if you're stuck between a rock and a hard place between these two guns. We'll also look at things like compatibility with mags for these two guns and compatibility with parts for things like the SSP2, what can be changed or what can be aftermarket parts can be used in these guns for those of you who are interested in like creating the ultimate SPQB gun or blinging out your gun for argument's sake. So let's get stuck in and go straight into what the differences between these two guns actually are. Okay, so looking at both these guns side by side, you can see an obvious difference, and that is the size and the length of both guns. So as you can see here, the SSP5 is nearly 2 inches longer than the SSP2. Now, other than that, right, first of all, before we get into like the main differences, I want to tell people out there, because I've seen it on a few threads, that this isn't an army armament, a pistol, right? Nothing about it resembles one. It's got a fixed outer barrel. It's got a TDC. It's got a 6.03 barrel, and it's got a full steel hammer set and trigger set. So yeah, it's not an army armament, okay? In fact, this whole upper was designed by Novritsch's team and is quite unique to it. Now, with that said, right, the first big difference I want to point out here is that this SSP2 is completely TM high kappa compatible, whereas SSP5 isn't, because quite a lot of SSP5 was built unique, and we'll get into that later. Now, the lowers on both these guns, there's not too much of a difference, but you will notice that this rail here on the SSP2 is a lot longer than on the SSP5, and they both have a little screw here that you need to undo to take off the slide, because as I said, it's a fixed they're fixed slides and fixed outer barrels, obviously to help improve accuracy. Now, getting into the obvious bits first, right, this is a €149 gun, so the same price as a normal pistol that you'd buy out of the box, which is really good. And then the SSP5 here is €289. Yeah, so this is a more premium gun, and that's what people want to know, is like, well, they both have TDCs, they both have fixed outer barrels. Why is this one so much better than this one? Well, we're going to get into that completely now and completely debunk what people might think about the two. So the very first thing that I want to point out is the SSP2 is made very much to be a sidearm that you'll draw every once in a while and you'll use. It kicks really hard, and despite being overall just a little bit lighter than the SSP5, the SSP5 doesn't kick hardly at all. This slide is extremely light, and the SSP5 isn't made to be a sidearm. This is made to be a primary gun used in SPQB, shooting hundreds of thousands more BBs than this gun. This is made to be shot all the time, all day, every day. So the parts in it and what it's made of are a lot more premium. And later I'll be asking questions about this. Would I buy this over a TM high kappa, etc. So stay tuned to hear my thoughts on all of that. So looking at both these guns, there are a few similarities, and that's this safety. So there is a safety on both guns, but you'll notice here that this one can be undone on SSP2 by this nice little screw, whereas it's pretty much the same on the SSP5. Now, the safety on the SSP5 is much stiffer, which I like. See that? I think the SSP2 is kind of annoying because my fat thumbs often, see that? I'm not even touching that with my thumb, hit it up and it engages, and I don't like that. If anything, I might even remove this safety. That annoys me. So if I'm shooting, sometimes I draw it and my thumb hits that on and it won't fire. That won't happen with SSP5. I can actually only barely do that with my thumb. It's actually quite stiff on this, which I much prefer because I don't want a gun not firing in the heat of a battle. But generally speaking, both are ambidextrous and they both have the same type of mag release. No real differences there. Another obvious to point out, but the sights on this are standard, as in they're not fiber sights, whereas on the SSP5 you're going to expect the nice fiber sights to come front and back out of the box, which is very nice. Hop-up systems of both these guns. The SSP2 has basically a similar hop-up to the TM High Kappa. It's exactly the same. And that, what I mean is, under this TDC, you'd have the typical plate that you would normally have in a normal hop-up, but the only difference is the screw is pushing it down. So those plates can actually wobble side to side a very small bit, and obviously they can push up and down. Whereas on the SSP5, it's an extremely unique hop-up. Everything about it is like built from the ground up, and there's a lovely big hop window, and the square patch can only push up and down, meaning accuracy is far superior on this gun, especially at those longer ranges. So there can be no movement at all in the hop chamber in this. It's all one piece, all built into this frame. Whereas this is, like, as I said, like a standard Tokumurui hop-up, which isn't bad either. It's still quite accurate and there's nothing really wrong with it. But this is just far better. Now, the screw on this for the TDC has a lot less room to travel up and down, and it doesn't click, it just screws, which is fine. It's quite stiff, but on the SSP5 this actually clicks, so it'll click and stay in place, but we have a lot more space vertically for that screw to move up and down, so there's a lot more adjustability in the SSP5. Now, both guns, with that said, are designed to shoot heavy BBs. This is designed to shoot 0.32 gram BBs at 1 joule, whereas this is designed to shoot 0.4 gram BBs at 1.5 joules. Now, my guns here are both downgraded to 1 joule. I actually changed the inner barrel on the SSP5, made it a little bit shorter, and it's also a bigger bore. So the accuracy test later isn't going to be 100% the true performance of the SSP5, because it's that I needed that bigger bore to basically slow that BB down and bring it down into Irish legal zones of 1 joule. Now, as I was saying, the SSP2 is a lot more compatible with TM parts, and I was asking the question earlier, would I buy a TM High Kappa to build a really nice racer gun, or would I just buy this? And the answer is, I'd probably buy this, because the parts are compatible, right? For a cheaper price than a TM High Kappa, like this gun stock, you're getting a gun that has better parts, because it has a TDC ready to go, it has a Type bore barrel ready to go, it already has a fixed barrel and slide. Now, I know people who build these race guns want a real blinged up gun, and of course you can do that with it, but I think personally losing this whole like front assembly where it's locked in place is a little bit of a waste. But yeah, listen to this slide, how smooth it is. It's really smooth. Like a real nice gliding sound. But again, also it's got a flat trigger, but I do get guys that want to build these blinged up guns. That's fair enough. Now, with the SSP5, people who buy this really and truly shouldn't be buying it to upgrade it for performance, right? Because the performance is there, like it is absolutely there. But that's why Novritsch is bringing out all these different unique colors and parts. Novritsch has claimed that he's going to make this the most customizable gun out there. So he's going to be bringing out loads of different colors, loads of fancy triggers, plates, magwells, slides, even an integrated tracer front slide. So the tracer is going to be built in, but it's going to look like this. But whereas none of that stuff is going to be coming out for the SSP2. The SSP2 is as you see it here, but this is going to be a real customizable gun. So that's a big difference that you need to consider if you want to pick one of these two. Now, looking at the actual assembly of the guns, right? The SSP2 slide is actually a mold formed slide, right? It's nice, but you can see it's probably got a slight more shine to it than the SSP5. The SSP5 is CNC'd out of a piece of aluminium, so it's much more complex, but it's much more precise. Like all these gaps close up amazingly well, real tight tolerances, whereas you don't see quite as tight tolerances on the SSP2. So yeah, I mean, definitely the slides, etc. are completely different. Also, you might see here, these hand grips. This is a much more textured finish, much more grip, whereas this is very plasticky, feels very plasticky. Now, with that said, the gun is actually, it is metal bar these grips here, but this just has more of a cheaper feel to it than the SSP5, which definitely feels a lot more premium. Now, interestingly enough, in cold weather, I found the SSP2 to work well. And when I mean cold, I mean weather that was actually like below 10 degrees Celsius. Now, Novritsch says if you're operating below 10 degrees Celsius, you should be changing over to the CO2 mags. The good thing is he does CO2 mags for both, so that's great. So you can run these guns in cold weather. But obviously, most people who get the SSP5 are going to be running at HPA for speed QB, which the thing will really shine. But you could do the same with SSP2. There should be no issue with running either HPA, but I would personally buy these guns with the CO2 mags. I just think CO2 is way better, and just leaves you use it all year round quite consistently. Now I'm going to show you that both these mags are actually compatible in each other. So I'll just show that here. So this is the mag that you'll get with the SSP2. It says Novritsch on the bottom, and it's got a nice base plate which you can grab here for pulling it out of the gun. Now, if you buy another one for your SSP2, the ones that you'll buy additional won't be the same as the one that comes with the gun. So they don't look as fancy, and it doesn't say Novritsch on the bottom, and they're slightly rounded. Now, if you compare these to the SSP5 mag, this is it here, you can see they're quite similar. The feed lips there on top look slightly different, and these are supposed to be an improved design, so they feed better. But yeah, the base plates look kind of different as well. Now the good thing is, I found that both these mags work perfectly in both guns, even though the Novritsch website says they don't. So this is the SSP5 mag. Let's try it in the SSP2, and I'll show you what I mean. So here we go. No issues at all. And let's try the SSP2 mag in the SSP2, naturally enough. No issues. Now, if we swap them over and I take the SSP5, this is the SSP2 mag in the SSP5. No issues. And of course, its own mag in the SSP5. They all seem to work really well together. No issues. So as you can see, the SSP2 when fully kitted out looks very, very nice. It's quite a beautiful gun. Definitely like this in this configuration, it's pretty badass. And this is like going to town fully on the gun. But yeah, I really like it. It looks really good. You obviously got your holster attachment here, which doesn't affect the slide in any way. And you also have your very, very nice mount for your red dot, which can go on either side, might I add, unlike the SSP5. So now you can see the SSP5 with the same equipment, and it looks very, very nice also. Obviously, it's a much longer gun than the SSP2. SSP2 is like a good 2 inches shorter than this, but it still looks really, really nice. Much lower red dot sight, like completely in line with the actual sights here on the back of the gun. But in general, yeah, it's a very different gun completely, as the whole front slide, etc. assembly. But yeah, very, very nice. Now the triggers on these guns are very different. This is more of a flat type trigger, as you can see on the SSP2, and when you pull it, it's got a nice little bit of travel you can see there before it goes off. It's a little bit stiffer. The hammer on this is a lot heavier. It's a lot heavier, and it's a lot clunkier just by sound. So everything on this is real metallic-y sounding, like same with the safety. Everything's very clicky. Whereas on the SSP5, it's just very, listen to that. It's a lot smoother, and that trigger, if you watch it, very light, way less travel, and there is a very definitive break point to it. Whereas I feel like at SSP2, it feels like you might not go off. It's at the same point each time. But yeah, just everything about this seems a bit smoother the trigger is definitely way, way better on the SSP5. There's no question. Another thing to note is obviously the SSP2, if you want to run a red dot, it's fixed down here at the bottom slide, which is great. It doesn't affect, it doesn't weigh down that slide, meaning it shoots nice and snappy. But the nice thing about this is you can mount that red dot on either side. And as you can see here, I can also mount this lovely holster option, left or right. Now you buy the one you want. This is obviously the right hand one, but you can buy a left hand one. And then you can just swap this red dot to the other side, which is really good. However, on the SSP5, you'll notice that it's only tapped for a holster on this side. Now I think you'll be able to buy a version, so you'll be able to do both sides. But it's just something to note that, yeah, it's only tapped for a holster on this side. Now, the red dots are very unique on this. The SSP5 has probably the lowest mounted red dot on any gun out there. And it's actually, this is making waves in the SPQB side of things. A lot of people love how low this red dot is. And you can easily use your iron sights as backup if something goes wrong. Whereas on SSP2, obviously, it's quite standard. It's a lot higher up. You can see the difference there when they're side by side. Way, way higher up. And you cannot use the iron sights with the red dot on if it gets shot out because they're blocked, actually. So, yeah, more options there with the SSP5 and a bit more top put into that. So overall, to summarize, this is highly TM compatible, but you lose power and accuracy. Whereas with the SSP5, it's kind of unique. It's built to be very much its own gun, and it will be very customizable, but not as compatible with TM parts. Only certain things are, so it's well worth noting that. Basically, to summarize both these guns, they're very different. This is very much a secondary, as you'd expect it to be, and this is very much a primary, made for continuous shooting and for running no other gun. Obviously, you can run this as a secondary too, which I do, but like, it's not really intended for that purpose, and that's why people will only spend more on this if they're running it as their primary sole gun. They come packaged very different. This comes in a very cardboardy box, right? Very cheap box. Or this comes in a nice foam box, which you can actually use to carry it on the site. So again, that's something that you might want to consider. There's one other thing that was a huge difference in these guns and really surprised me. And that was when I was changing the barrel in this to get my power down to 1 joule. The barrel that was in it was a black barrel, really unusual. And even though it was quite a long barrel, it only weighed 11 grams. Now, I put a shorter, wider bore barrel in. I think that was like a brass, or no, it was an aluminium barrel or something like that. And it actually weighed 75 grams, right? So whatever barrel Novritsch had in this, the original 6.01, it only weighed 11 grams. It was incredible. It felt like nothing compared to the new barrel I put in. So I don't know what the hell the thing was made of, but I thought it was really, really unique. So we'll now go over to the accuracy test and show you guys exactly how they perform. And bear in mind, the barrel that's in this is in the accuracy test is 6.04, not the original 6.01. And it just had to be that way to make it country legal. But you could expect far better results had the original barrel been in it. But still, you'll see that this will come out that slight bit better on top. Here today I'm at Urban Assault on this long indoor play arena where there's no wind, and I'll be testing out the SSP5 versus the SSP2 on a 15-meter range to see what one is more accurate. Now, one thing to point out, because this is Ireland, this has been tuned down to a 1 joule gun, and the SSP2 naturally comes 1 joule. Normally this would come at about 1.5 joules. However, everything else is pretty much the same in both these guns, so we should get a very nice comparison on how the accuracy is. I'll be using a laser on both guns, so you'll be able to see my point of aim on the target each time, so there'll be no ambiguity about where I'm aiming. And that laser will be set for 15 meters to line up perfectly with the iron sights on both guns. Okay, so we have our targets set up down there, This is going to be our range. As you can see, it's indoors, not influenced by wind or anything like that. So first up is going to be SSP2, and the target we're shooting at will be the left-hand target. So let's see how this gun performs, and hopefully it'll be really, really nice. Let's get on it. All good? Okay. Let's line my laser up here and try and get it as perfectly in the center of that target each time as possible. That's 15 rounds with the SSP2. So that's 15 rounds with the SSP2. Now let's see how it did. So yeah, as you can see beside my hand, that's pretty nice grouping. We've actually perfectly taken the bullseye out of it, which is hilarious. But we had a few flyers. We have these 3 down here. Might be up to me. But let's see how that groups versus the SSP5 next. Now it is important to note that there's a much bigger recoil off the SSP2 than SSP5, because there's a lot more of a slide recoiling, and the SSP5 doesn't have that issue at all. It's like the gun almost isn't shooting. So I'm just going to get set up here. Again, I'll use my laser and try and get it as accurate as I can. Let's just do one test fire there first. Okay, that's perfect. Here we go. Cool, let's go down and check it out. So again, I would say that that's a slightly tighter group. The SSP2 has quite a bit of travel up and down, whereas the majority of my shots went through here. My laser is just set a little bit too high, but yeah, that's pretty nice accuracy, I think you could agree. So the SSP5 is quite fun, as you can see here. It's a very, very nice gun to shoot. Really, really fast trigger. I just really like this gun a lot because it does feel much more premium in the hand. Yeah, it's just a lovely gun. And now the SSP2, it's a gas-hungry gun. It's not that bad, but it's just nowhere near as efficient as the SSP5 would be. So let's just see. Much more recoil, as you can see. But yeah, nonetheless, very nice gun. Very, very nice. Got more mags for eating. Much harder to follow up with accurate shots out of the SSP2. Definitely much harder. Another thing that's interesting to note is when you're adjusting the TDC on the SSP2, there's no clicks. And there's a lot less of adjustment up and down. But on the SSP5, if I just show you real quick, you'll hear there is clicks. It's quite hard to hear that. I'll bring that up to my microphone. But there is actually clicks. So it kind of like will hold its position as well, even though it's a TDC. And because this is higher, there's a lot more travel up and down for that screw. Not that you need it, but it's there if people like that kind of thing. So guys and girls, I hope you found that video to be really informative. If you did, please drop a comment below and show your appreciation, give it a like, and if you really like the channel, guys and girls, subscribe. There's plenty gameplays, it's not just reviews on this channel. I mainly focus on gameplays, so I'll be showing you both these guns on the field, which is what most of you want to see anyway.